Good afternoon. We're going to get underway for this program. Thank you all for coming, and thanks to Ed Hilton. We have a streaming scenario, so people can later hear this on the website. Post the streaming video on the website. We won't be able to take any questions from the streaming video, but we will have that available. Thanks, Ed, for volunteering. Again, my name is Steve Teixeira, and I want to quickly go over the agenda, what we can expect here in the next hour and a half or so. We have a couple of key topics. We have a PowerPoint presentation to help you follow along. We have topics: why incorporation, the case for local decision making, and why now. Also, what's been accomplished to date. So those of us who've been working on this have been working on it for about 2+ years, because there's a lot of prep work that you have to do. You have to figure out what needs to be done, and it's not an easy process. The state of California is not too keen on people wanting to have local control, so they make the process pretty complicated. And we're going to walk through what the process is today to help you get oriented. So what have we accomplished to date? What services might a local municipal government provide? What services would we provide? And then we'll have a good Q&A session. And we'll talk a little bit about what the LAFCO process is. LAFCO is Local Agency Formation Commission. They have a critical role to play. Their function is, are the boundaries of governmental entities correct? Could they be more efficient? That whole process. So we'll talk about the LAFCO process and what that means. And they do require a pretty significant application form, which includes a petition signed by a certain number of registered voters within the proposed boundaries of the town. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. And then we'll talk about the organization that we've established to be our fundraising vehicle and our vehicle for information out in the community. That is Eastern Classroom Future, which is a 501c4 nonprofit. So that's a quick overview of our program. If for any reason you need to leave early, that's no problem, but we're glad you're here. I want to introduce the people who've been working. We're all volunteers. Nobody's getting any compensation for this, but we believe this is an important decision for we as a community to make at this particular point in time. So Andrew Ryan is here, Kevin Drake, Danielle Hughes, Alex Min, Christian Brown, our attorney, Judy Friedman, Wally Auerbach, and again, my name is Steve Teixeira, and Samir Tuma is on our team. He's enjoying spring training baseball with his daughter, so gave him a pass for tonight. So without any further ado, I will introduce again Andrew Ryan to walk us through the first couple of topics on our agenda. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for spending your Friday with us. So here we go. In a summary, what's our purpose and why we're here? All of us have some kind of ski bum origin story. That'd probably be a pretty fun meeting as well. But this place is special. We've all chosen to live here, maybe have a business, raise a family. We see lots of visitors come here and enjoy this place. And it should be maintained, right? It should be enhanced. It should be serviced in ways that protect the environment, that allow access and nurture resilient communities, right? Our communities are facing some challenges, right? We all know about the housing challenges. We know about catastrophic wildfire. What makes us more resilient? Is that possibly local governance? Can we do better for all of us with local governance? That's the question we're asking. So, if you don't live in Placer County, you're welcome to stay here. But if you do, you should be aware of how our governance works, right? It's 5 districts, more or less broken up by equal distribution of population. We have one supervisor, Supervisor Gustafson, who's District 5. So when you look at that map, what jumps out at you? It should be how big District 5 is, right? District 5 is significantly bigger than the rest of the districts. It's about 1,150 square miles. The next closest one was 215 square miles, and then they get smaller. Our population in Eastern Placer County is about 13,700, so that's about 17% population of District 5, and about 3% population of Placer County. So as the West Slope grows, the percentage gets smaller and smaller. So with a county, they have to make decisions that address all the districts, right? So most of those decisions are made on county level priorities. That doesn't always reflect our needs, and sometimes those decisions feel like one size fits all. So why incorporation? What would that mean? Well, it could mean local governance by elected officials from our community. It could mean better transparency and reporting of the tax dollars that are generated with it. As a community, how do we make good decisions if we don't know how much things cost, or how much money is going to be needed, or how to allocate that money? There could be more responsive and efficient services that improve our everyday lives. And it could be more tailored representation of the state. When the county goes to the state for state funding, they have a county-wide perspective. That's reasonable, that makes sense. Our needs are often different. So when we're in this room, the idea of incorporation is not so much about what we should decide, what policies we care about. Should so-and-so road get plowed on a certain day? Is the zoning right for a certain part of town? How tall is the building? It's not the what, but who should make that decision? Who should decide? So should that be by locals that are elected up here, the local governance, or should it be made elsewhere? So that's the real question of incorporation. So why now? Why now should we consider it? Well, for one, we have a local supervisor who is currently elected. We also have a local representation on the LAFCO board, which is the local agency formation committee. And we also have a Placer County leadership supervisors that are aware of this idea of incorporation and are interested in working collaboratively. We need them as a partner to work through this. It's a complicated task. So our community has a wide range of challenges. We have a lot of needs. You all are needy. I'm needy. But we often ask for things that county government doesn't necessarily perform. We ask for much higher amounts of municipal services than they perform elsewhere in Placer County. So we're kind of like that kid that needs everything, constantly raising our hands, saying that's not enough, we need more. So we're needy. So can our dreams and goals be better addressed with local governance? Those are the questions. I know everybody wants to dive into policy. As I look out here, I see lots of people I'm bored with long policy debates. So table the policy discussions for now and really focus on who should govern us and who should make those decisions. So I'm going to wrap up, but I know Supervisor Gustafson wanted to make a quick comment just on the why now, why explore incorporation.
Thanks, Andrew, and what a great turnout tonight on a Friday. Thanks for being here. You know, many of us that are more mature in the room might remember that we've tried this a few times. Back in 1988, 89, I'm looking at Walt Cass, maybe Roger Kahn. Many of us looked at a regional incorporation. And I, at the time, was working for our Placer County Supervisor Mike Flutie. And I was quoted as saying we wanted more local control, and I got taken to task by two other supervisors that didn't like that comment, that somehow the county wasn't meeting their needs. The issue here is where are the best decisions made for our community? And the reason I took this job was not because of anything other than helping us get to a point where we could have a thorough discussion on this issue. And if you ask anybody who knew me at the time when I quit another job to put my hat in the ring for this position, I told them all this. Why would I do this? Because this community deserves this. We need to know the facts, and the only way to get to all the facts is to go through this process where you do the comprehensive fiscal analysis, you see where all the tax dollars go, and you make the decision for yourselves. This isn't about me, you know. I look at it and I go, I step aside and ask you to look at where you want to make decisions. Why now? You know, this is a time when I can assure you I can fight hard with our county staff to get your questions answered, and that all of those stones are overturned, right? To what things cost, where we're spending money, how we spend it, how we allocate it. I'm there on LAFCO and serving on that board and asked for that committee and have been chair for the last 2 years to get us to a point where the LAFCO, the Local Agency Formation Commission, has all the information it needs to make a good decision. None of us can predict the outcome until we get through the whole study, right? All we know is we need the facts and we need them in your hands so you can make that decision, because ultimately that's who decides. So at the appropriate time, I am not here on the committee. I support the committee's efforts to get answers. I think we all have deserved this for decades and decades. In 1994, we started a resort association, now the NTCA, with that extra 2%, fighting to have money back in our community that we could spend here as the stepping stone to hopefully getting more of that money spent back here. So hats off to the NTCA board members that have given so much time through the years to make sure we have a say on that amount of money. But I think most of you agree we'd like to see more of the revenue we generate spent back up here in the ways we would like it spent. So just wanted to make that really clear. When people ask, where do I stand with getting the information to the voters so you can decide.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kevin Drake. For those who I don't know, just a few of you in the room. I've lived in North Iowa 20 years. I think I'm now officially a local. That's debatable. But I'm here to just share a couple of highlights and milestones that our group has accomplished. We're a grassroots effort of people who have lived in this area for a while and care about the future. And it started as a conversation, and over the course of the last 2.5 years, we have accomplished a fair amount with very little funding. One of the key accomplishments is completing an initial fiscal feasibility review. And that is essentially an initial draft study to determine if incorporation of a new town is a financially viable option. And I should note that that effort was funded by a couple of very generous community members who pointed up about $32,000 that allowed us to hire Bob Spencer of Perfect Economics to do that study. There are many assumptions made, but in short, the study did find that an incorporated town in North Lake Tahoe is a fiscally viable option. And I'll get into a few of the details in a second. One of the main reasons, I'll get into the details here in a second. The other thing we've been spending a lot of time on is a listening tour around the region, talking to large employers, small businesses, key community leaders, county staff, and the PUDs as an example, and asking everybody, what's on your mind? What would you like to see? What are your big questions? And collecting as many of those as we can into developing an FAQ and using that to inform ongoing meetings and conversations like we're having today. And I want to stress that that listening tour is ongoing. It's not completed. It is definitely an ongoing effort, and it will continue as an ongoing effort up until the point where we have a vote for this. And lastly, we formed a nonprofit. We formed a nonprofit called Eastern Placer Future. We're a 501c4 corporation, and we needed to do that in order to fundraise, in order to employ consultants, and in order to actually submit our application to LAFCO, the Local Area Formation Commission. Okay, some details, just a few. The initial fiscal feasibility review did find that given the sources of revenue for what would be the incorporated new town, that there would be a budget surplus. And the initial surplus is estimated at 27%. or around $10.8 million. In comparison to the two other incorporated towns near us, which are South Lake Tahoe and the town of Truckee, the proposed incorporated North Lake Tahoe, the town of North Lake Tahoe, which is to be named, that is our placeholder name, has 70 to 80% higher revenue per capita than town of Truckee and the city of South Lake Tahoe. That's mostly due to our high TOT, transient occupancy tax, we bring in this region. And it's a huge asset we all are clear about. That isn't to say that that's exactly where the numbers are going to fall, but there's a margin of safety there that gives us confidence that this is actually fiscally feasible. And it should also give us confidence that we can operate in an efficient way. And we have the fiscal resources to do so. Another question that comes up regularly is, what's the boundary? What is a potential town in North Lake Tahoe look like? And it looks strange. It looks really strange, right? That is, it's stranger than Gorbachev's birthmark. But essentially, the new town would incorporate all of unincorporated Placer County, which includes all the way down the West Shore into Tahoma, all the way around the North Shore and Tahoe City to Kings Beach, the state line. It includes Olympic Valley and Alpine Meadows, bits of Ponderosa Palisades and Truckee. It includes North Star and all of the Marks Valley. There's a big area in the middle that's white. These are state, these are forest lands. These are state responsibility areas, and our proposal at this point would exclude those from being the responsibility of North Lake Tahoe, because we would rather not have that liability and that responsibility. This is the proposed boundary, and this is what the study is based on. This is not final. But this is these are the communities that we are talking about that would be incorporated into a singular town, so that we can all work together. While there are many differences, and we all see those and know those and embrace those, we have a lot more in common than we do. We have a lot more things in common than we do differences. And I want to stress to everybody that we recognize how different the West Shore is from Olympic Valley, from Kings Beach, from North Star, Tahoe City. And part of this effort is to embrace those differences. Part of what makes us strong as a region is we're not just a singular town, we have nodes. And each of the nodes has a different personality and a different history, which is to be celebrated. It's part of what makes North Lake Tahoe unique. So with that, I'm going to pass the mic on to Danielle Hughes.
Bring this down.
Thanks for having me. Nice to see you all today. Thanks for being here. So I'm really going to talk about what could we provide. This is where we really need some feedback from you all. We would be looking at providing the town council, the town manager, finance and administration. We'd be looking at managing our local roads and snow removal, zoning and land use decisions, economic development. Local enforcement would likely be contracted that, but we would look at that as part of this process. And also look at our transit services and related services that go along with that. Basically, your general government, we would be looking at to assess what we could do and how much that costs to provide the services that we receive. So it's also important to understand what we're not going to be doing with this process. We're not going to be looking at changing our special districts. Our special districts are doing a great job in their services that they provide here. We understand that those are unique within each area, and we want to continue to provide those services. Our schools, our PDs, our airport districts. We would still be working with Caltrans and CHP and state parks and those other governments that are within our boundaries. And we would still, the health and human services would still be provided by Placer County, as they typically are provided at the county level. So we just wanted to provide kind of an understanding of what this is, and in this process, we look forward to your input. And I think we can move on to Q&A. Q&A. Okay. So hopefully you guys have been thinking about what you're interested in having some conversation, and I'm going to let Steve take this.
An important part of this program and our effort from the very beginning, as Kevin said, going forward, is to solicit input from our friends and neighbors and community members of what questions might you have based on what we've talked about so far. Judy's going to come around and not hand you the mic per se, but at least let you make sure we get you on the recording. So who would like to start the questions? Anybody? Yes, sir.
I'm Bob Teacher. I live in Alpine Meadows.
Bob?
Also on the Alpine Water District. Two numbers come to mind in the original expenditures slide, having to do with the revenues versus expenditures. 27% left over. And I wonder what the expenditures are. We know what the revenues are, but what are the numbers that you have made up to total $39 million in expenditures?
We have that. I don't think we have that in a slide, Kevin, do we? No. Okay. We can give us a minute, Bob, and we'll see if we can source that information. Obviously, the study that we had done did include that information. It's hard to put all these numbers up on the screen, but we will get that information for you. Thank you for the question. Anyone else? Yes, in the back.
Yeah, hi, I'm Richard Hoffner.
Hi, really.
From the Valley, and I'm on the board of the Mutual Water and Public Services there. So, obviously, this is going to take a lot of money, effort, politics, tongue twisting, and persuading to get this through. What is that process? How long do you think it will take, and how much you think it will cost?
Great question. Thank you, Richard. Appreciate it. Our initial fundraising goal is $150,000. It's probably going to get higher than that, maybe $200,000. The outside of this is looking for an election in November of 2026. But there's a lot of things to do between now and then. And so, that's the goal, because if you did a special election, if you had a standalone election just on this issue, if you miss the general election cycle, you're going to be paying a lot more per vote because it's a special election. If you combine it with something like a regular general election, like in November of 2026, it's a lot less expensive. So that's our worthy goal, and why it's a worthy goal. But as was said by several of us, it is a long and bumpy road. And we'll describe a little bit about the LAFCO process here in a few minutes, but that is a timely process too, because we have to go out in the community, we have to gather petition signatures from registered voters within the proposed boundary, and that all takes time. But can it be done? We believe it can be. But really, it isn't up to us 9, it's up to us, the bigger us. Yes, Kevin wants to help.
Just to the first gentleman's question about what are the expenditures. The general categories are, in no particular order: animal services, general government, land planning and development, law enforcement, parks, stormwater, and capital projects / economic development. These are fairly classic categories for what municipal government provides. I'm not going to go through all the details of how they break out, but those are the categories. So it's animal services, general government, land planning and development, law enforcement, parks, stormwater, and economic development.
Thank you, Kevin. All right, there were some people. Yes.
Hi, my name is Louise.
Hi, Louise.
I'm pretty much a green bean up here, but I'm curious who would vote for these people who live here locally? What about all the people who have homes here, vacation homes?
Only registered voters.
Registered voters, okay, just want to make that
within
clear.
the boundary, yes.
Thank you.
Hi, Sarah Lawis, just a real quick question. In lieu of the proposed township being so oddly shaped, where theoretically would the administrative center be? Dispersed in the various West Shore, North Shore, etc.? retrofit? Is there a concept for that?
Excellent question, Sarah. No, there's not a concept. But, that's something we need to grapple with. The county has a number of facilities up here. I think the town of Turkey got really lucky because there was a bank building for sale and they moved into that as their town hall. Great. So we'd have to look around and we'd have to see. And we'll talk about this in a little bit here, but if the LAFCO application says you guys can proceed, here's the reasons why, what are your findings as to why we can proceed, then we work with Placer County to do something called revenue neutrality negotiations. This is something the state put in a few years ago. So the county has to not be harmed by having this new municipal government formed. So you have to discuss, are there any county facilities that we would like to have as a town that the county would be willing to provide for a price? And what would that price be? And what's the cumulative price of what the county might offer the town? And how much time would we have to pay that back? So that has to do with your question of, where does the administrative center go? Where is sort of town hall, if you will? Those things are all to be determined. But there is a process for determining. I guess that's the answer. There was one question up here. Okay. It'll be after this go. Yes, sir.
Russ Hanson here.
Hi, Russ.
I see. Question on the snow removal.
Yes.
That's going to require a pretty hefty initial investment in equipment, I assume. How will that be financed?
Thank you, Russ. Good question. So again, that could be part of the negotiations with the county. The county has the second largest snow removal fleet in the state of California, topped only by Caltrans. So, which is pretty amazing. So we'd have to discuss whether they'd be willing to offer us an opportunity to purchase some of the equipment that is used up here, and what that price would be and how long we have to pay it back. We don't expect to say, okay, it's X and check for X, but it could be something that is provided as part of a negotiated deal under the banner of revenue neutrality. I hope that helps us. Yes.
Hi there, Sherry Segal. I'm a 20-year resident of Broadway, Kingston area. I have two questions, one comment. One question maybe for Kevin on the financials. I didn't see the TBID tax dollars included in there. Is there a reason for that? Does that stay with the county? Is that something that can be kept locally? And have you seen what those figures are? That's one question.
We could ask Tony Karwowski. But basically, you want to come up, Tony, and answer that? Basically, the TBID, or Child Business Improvement District, Tourism Business Improvement District, that is an assessment that businesses assess themselves. And that money belongs to them. It doesn't belong to the town eventually, or it doesn't belong to the county. But I'll let Tony amplify it.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Thanks for the great question. So if you are a business in the area that contributes to the TBID, let me just see you raise your hand so people in the room can get a sense for who is self-assessing these dollars. Yeah, this is a choice of the business community to bring these dollars forward for reinvestment into our community. We as the destination management and marketing organization of the community are privileged to be able to utilize these dollars that now fund us, and the dollars that used to fund us were TOT dollars, which on those transient occupancy tax dollars. Through an agreement with Placer County, when we formed the TBID, the thoughtful stakeholders said, hey, let's not let those TOT dollars leave our community. Let's utilize them for the purpose of workforce housing and transportation, and support them with local oversight from the committees that are convened by the NTCA. So we've utilized the dollars for TBID to replace the TOT dollars, and we've generated and increased the funding pot that is locally generated by to return it into the community. So we have the 2% TOT that we oversee through the CAP committee historically, and now we have another TOT funding bucket additionally to a total of about $10 million to put back into infrastructure related to the as well as transportation and workforce housing. To date, in the last 2.5 years, we've put $33.5 million back. So, in partnership with the county, we're formed to enact the county. The businesses petition to self-assess and take that petition to the county use the assessment, the petition, and then launch the petition. As a side note, it was set up primarily for 5 years first. So, you know, the first 5-year term, we're in a renewal process right now that will hopefully take place and finalized in November. Ahead. A little long.
Thank you very much. And I think it would be helpful, I know a lot of these questions get passed around in the, in the chats and everything, but I think people do want to know what the total TBID dollars are that are generated and be able to have some local control over that money, but that's just more of a comment. I think, and my comment and my next question are kind of related to each other. One is that we all know in this room, there's a lot of people who have been here a long time, that these efforts have been tried before. I led an effort 10 years ago to try to incorporate, and many people in this room were part of that. But the reason behind that, and some people may not like this, but the reason behind that is that there were, and we saw the same thing in Olympic Valley, there were massive development efforts, massive scale development that would have fundamentally changed the character of Tahoe. And the reason for the efforts to incorporate both in Olympic Valley and the one that I was leading were to try to stop those efforts. So I understand when you guys are saying it's not about the who, it's the what. But I don't think that you can disentangle those things. I think it is incredibly important that what is driving this is a fundamental concern for the future of Lake Tahoe, for the quality of life of our communities, of course for our economy, but also for the environment, because those things are very much intertwined. And we have, I get where you guys are coming from, and I think it's really, really important that we do have local representation. But if that is disentangled from the what, and if people in this community start to see this as an effort to get big development projects through the pipeline in an easier way with with an easier path, you will not get the votes that you need. And I can assure that. And so I guess my next question is what are those votes you need? When are those deadlines? What are the things that need to happen next? What are the thresholds of community support?
We're going to cover that in a minute here, Sherry. So thank you for your time. All right. We've got a couple more minutes before we get into the next part. We'll have another Q&A towards the end, and then a number of us will be staying after class, if you will, to answer any other questions on a one-on-one basis. So, yes. Yes, sir.
My name is Bob Ayton.
Hi, Bob.
Coming up here since the mid-80s. Okay.
There you go. Good.
My name is Bob Ayton. I live in the College Point area. Been here permanently for the last 10 years, been coming up since the early 80s. My family and I really love the area. I had some questions on your financials.
Okay.
I assume, does that represent a 12-month period?
Yes, fiscal year.
Would that be indicative of what would happen over the next 10 years? Do we see the same thing, 9 more years?
It's hard to predict what the future will bring, but I think what we're trying to do and what LAFCO will do and what this process will bring us is some ability to feel like we have a cushion enough to cover things. But you never know what might happen. So, will my taxes go up? Will it cost me more to live here? Those are things that are hard to answer. That would be up to the town council.
I assume there would be some inflation in there, but is there any extraordinary capital expenditures that aren't in that plan that might come up in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I would imagine that there will be capital expenditures that come up.
So we have to have additional revenue for that.
Yeah. If the community said we need X, as a capital improvement that we don't have, then the community could figure out if that's something that they want to do. Maybe extra.
Yeah. I noticed there was a fund balance. Is there a beginning balance? We had a county beginning tomorrow. Will we inherit some money from the current operation they have?
Basically, the answer is we would inherit some. some funding that got transferred to the town. Yes. What that number is, I don't know. Okay, a couple more. Yes, sir.
So my name's Aaron Hussein. I just have two short questions.
Yes.
First is with regard to the cost numbers you put up. Presumably that's based on what the county is currently spending in the region,
Yes.
correct? Okay. So then my second question is just if you could elaborate a little bit more on some of the assumptions that were used, recognizing that the revenue neutrality negotiations have not taken place, and what kind of assumptions went into revenue based.
It's hard to remember all the assumptions that were made, but I think we did reference that there were some, and I don't know Andrew or Kevin if you have that handy somewhere, but it was based on, so the person who did the study for us, Bob Spencer, who is a local resident, not full-time, but he has a house in Alpine. So he knows the area pretty well, and he got the numbers that he needed to study from the county. So it was based on the county 21, 22, I think, revenues. So, couldn't get any better numbers than what the county could provide us. And we do have a study that details all those assumptions. I think we have a summary of that, which we can post on the website that will provide that information. But a very astute question. Thank you.
Jim Sadak from Tahoe City. Just to elaborate a little bit more on the lady that just spoke earlier, and I think it was Kevin that mentioned there's various nodes around the lake. I'm really concerned as to how the council, say the town council, would be established or set up as far as representation goes, because I'm very concerned with a lot of the politics in the area, the behind the scenes activities that go on, that we get a true representation of development, what size development based on the community. And if that has to come down to like a community vote for a project over, say, $10 million, then maybe, I'm just really concerned that this could be a detriment actually to the community.
I appreciate the question. We appreciate the question, Jim. There's two ways to go, and there's pros and cons for both. You could have all your 5 council persons elected by the area, they have to live in the town, or you could have them represent certain districts. It's done both ways in California, and there's pros and cons to each. That would be a decision when it comes time to vote. Another question is, do you vote on incorporation, and then do you have a council election, or do you have the vote at the same time you elect your first 5 council members? So there's some things that have to be dealt with on your points, sooner rather than later. And that would be a community decision, which way you want to go. I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Hi, Ed.
Hello, there we are. Ann Nichols, appreciate you guys trying to get this all together. It just seems that the list of people involved right now is heavily involved in the
I'm not. I don't think most of us are.
This way, okay. So, if we could get more representatives of the general community, I think would be great. And then hopefully it'll need a referendum. And then if we could maybe at the same time have a referendum about, because it looked like the survey from the Community Alliance was wanting a 10-year T-bid timeline now, and maybe to be able to increase the percentage. So we could maybe vote on that too. Great.
I mean, the T-bid vote is basically constricted to the people that are actually being assessed. It's not a broad community vote, but we could have more on that. I appreciate your comment. Thank you. Yes, David.
So my name is David Stepner from Olympic Valley. Because of revenue recognition, excuse me, the question is, and it was posted on Nextdoor, posted on Nextdoor as well. Because of the revenue neutrality argument, would the taxes paid by a resident of North Tahoe go up compared to what they do today? Because you've been paying the revenue neutrality as well as for the services.
So the revenue neutrality, David, doesn't come all at once. What I've seen in other areas that have incorporated in California, they seem to be accelerating more recently with really wasn't any for a long time because the state made the process so onerous. But I think the negotiations with the county would be along the lines of, this is what you will owe us, and this is the time frame you have. So it doesn't mean that day one, we're all paying a bunch of money for snowplow equipment or buildings or whatever that might be. I think the county, they understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. There's a process to go through in talking with them, but I don't think they are interested in, if the town goes forward, I don't think they want to saddle the town with this massive financial burden to start with. So that would, maybe I'm being overly optimistic, but I think that'll be true. Then we'll come to, hi Joe, then we'll come to Fred.
Oh,
There you go.
how's this, better?
Better, yes, sir.
My name's Joe Lons, I've been here since I was 27 years old, I've been older now, so we
No,
have
look.
8 children here. And my concern is, do we have North Star, Pacific Palisades, and major ski areas on board? We need that. We know that?
Do we know that?
Yes.
I can't specifically answer for them, but there certainly have been conversations with them. I think they know what we're doing, and they will be major players in a decision. Not a lot of them don't vote here, but they certainly have influence. Yeah. Yes, Fred.
My name is Fred Hillfeld, and I help lead the effort to incorporate Olympic Valley. My neighbors are asking 2 questions, which I'd like to see the committee address. The first question is this going to be an overlay of government which will cost us extra taxes? We'll have more taxes because of these different levels of government. That's the first question. I'd like to hear the committee speak to that. And the other is a perception that I think the committee needs to speak to, and that is that the incorporation of trucking has been a failure.
Okay. Thank you for that, Fred. We'll get to those. We have a couple more, and then we have a little bit more presentation. We'll do another Q&A at the end, and have opportunities with you one-on-one. Yes.
Hi, my name is Kylie Bigelow from Tahoe City. I had a question about the shape. So you said it's proposed. If there are communities, say Martis Valley, where there's lots of property tax, and they aren't interested in this for some reason, are we no longer financially feasible unless everybody's a part of it? Or have we looked at other shape options to see if there's enough property tax, TOT? Just curious if.
No, it's a good question. So based on the proposed boundary, we believe, again, there's a revenue surplus. It does include the communities out in the Martis Valley that are within Placer County. So those are in this boundary. Now, where the boundary might change is if the LAFCO board says, for whatever reason, you should not have the big white area, or you should do this or that. So the boundaries may change a little. But I think no matter which way we cut it, the fact of the matter is there will be a revenue surplus. We didn't think that we'd be having this meeting. But, it shows, and it does, as several of us said, it is because of the incredible amount of TOT that this area generates. That's principally the reason for the revenue. So not the only reason, but it's a big part of it. So you're right in saying if a certain area that generates TOT is not in, could that affect the finances? Yes, it could. Okay, got time for 2 more, and then we'll do a little bit more presentation, and then we'll wrap it up. All right, okay, we're good. All right, very good. People higher up the food chain than me on the site. All right, our next presentation will be about the LAFCO process, and Wally Auerbach will help us walk through that.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Wally Auerbach, those mature guys that remember the efforts back in the 80s. And I did want to answer one of the questions that came up just now about another layer of government. The idea here is a municipal government would be providing the services the county is providing now. You're using the revenues generated locally to provide those services. Fiscal analysis, the fiscal analysis points out that the revenue is there to provide the services of the county plus $10 million. So when you talk about, will this require another level of government? Yeah, we are creating another level of government, but we're not duplicating services. We're still only getting services from one place instead of the county. Now it's the town. As far as future revenues go, listen, if the town of Truckee has voted a couple of times to tax themselves, that's how taxes go up. And if the voters in this community in the future decide they want to raise taxes for a specific purpose, they should be given that opportunity. It doesn't just automatically happen though because we incorporate. So I want to dispel that notion. This is not creating some disparity in the services or duplication in government. It's absolutely not. Anyway, let me talk about the LAFCO process for a minute. Some of this stuff was already covered, and it may sound a little bit familiar. LAFCO is an independent agency. It is actually within Placer County. Its role, one of its roles is to oversee boundaries and changes in boundaries for all kinds of local government in the county. Its board is made up of 2 county supervisors, 2 special district members, 2 representatives of cities, and 1 public member. They meet in Auburn, and their meetings are all public. Now they have an application process, just like everything else in the county, a lot of form, and it requires a whole number of things, some of which we already have, such as an initial boundary and a preliminary fiscal analysis. But the other items that the application requires are going to take a bit more work. The most significant thing being we need to have a petition signed by 25% of the registered voters within the area to be incorporated in order to make the application to LAFCO valid. It now becomes a real project once you reach that threshold. So that means we've actually got to go out and gather somewhere between 35 and 40% of the signatures, because 10 to 15% of those signatures will actually fail in the signature verification process. And that's not because they're not voters, it's because maybe they've moved, or maybe something else has happened. So this is a big lift. There's 8,500 voters within this proposed incorporation boundary, and that's a lot of signatures required just to get the application in the door. So once the petition is verified, LAFCO can actually move forward and start reviewing it. LAFCO commissions a comprehensive fiscal analysis. We don't have a role in deciding who does it or how much it costs. LAFCO does that. LAFCO also decides what kind of an environmental document is going to be required in order to analyze the impacts of this incorporation. There's been a lot of discussion about that statewide. There is a lot of effort on behalf of communities that want to incorporate elsewhere in the state to eliminate that requirement or make it such that it's a minimum level of environmental review, because the cost of an EIR can kill the applicant. That was sort of the spear through the heart of Olympic Valley at one point in time. Once LAFCO starts that application process, another process that starts at Placer County, and that is all the county departments get together and analyze exactly what the fiscal impact is going to be on Placer County if we were to incorporate. And that's when you've heard these revenue neutrality discussions come up. All those departments are going to give the CEO of the county a report, says here's the impact, and the CEO of the county along with his team is going to start a negotiation process with the applicant, which will be us, as to how those revenues should be shared going forward. And it's obviously an important agreement that has to be made there, because it'll determine not only how long we will be paying out of that $10 million, how long we'll be paying the county to divorce them, so to speak. But it also will talk about topics like the exchange of assets, and that's real estate and facilities, snow removal equipment, all of that's going to be part of that agreement. Once those negotiations are done, the county CFO or CEO gives his report to the Board of Supervisors, and they have to accept and approve that report. Assuming LAFCO is coming along with their environmental document and comprehensive fiscal analysis, once all of that is in place, LAFCO can call for an election. And at that point, we'll be given some choices. Now, the recent examples that we have are you vote for two things. One is yes or no on incorporation. Two would be seating the initial town council. So the example we have, and there was some talk about at-large or by district voting, the example we have is that the three highest vote getters win the election, and they are seated for a 4-year term. The next two vote getters are also seated for 2-year terms. That starts the rotation of town council members. Now that's just one example. It could be done other ways. And if there's something that should become apparent, we still don't know what we don't know yet. There's a lot to learn here. So last thing I want to point out is between LAFCO meetings, Board of Supervisors meetings, and these meetings, which are going to continue, and information is going to be shared with the community, there's going to be a lot of opportunities for the public to stay engaged and to weigh in a public forum or a informal forum. So we're starting a process here, and everybody should feel comfortable that it's all as transparent as it can possibly be. That's it. Thank you.
All right, so several times we mentioned what we need to raise to pull this off, and Alex Min is going to help us understand what we
Hi, everyone. Alex Min, from long-time, 25, 26 years. 25, 26 years now. Maybe not, but my children, that's the reason I'm here doing this. That's the reason I'm here contributing my time, energy, and effort is really for them. Growing up here, born and raised. Kings Beach Elementary, one in North Bravo Middle School, one in North High School, athletes, Junior Olympics, things like that. So I'm really passionate. Like Andy said, this is a very special place. And the only way that we can get there is through fundraising. This is a big effort, it's a heavy lift, and we really need to depend on the community. So as mentioned before, our near-term goal is 150,000 just to get through the process. Probably will take more than that, but that's a good start. We figured. Funds for the LAFCO application, legal services, outreach, petition. There's a lot of work that goes into this as we keep trying to hammer in everybody. We do have sign-ups for committees over here. Please, we're begging you as community members, friends, families, help us with this. And I would love to have you on one of these boards. One of them being last. So we have fundraising and branding, education and outreach, work plan and schedule. This is a team effort from all of us who live here and love this area. And our little group is the ones who started it, but we need everybody to come in and help us carry this across the finish line. And if you want to have your voice heard, if you want to steer this in the right direction, please share it. I told you, you got my vote for mayor. So please come help us out with this. This is not just us. We want to pass this on to everybody else. We do have a GoFundMe set up. You see the little posters everywhere, there's QR codes. Please scan, help. $20 donations, $5 donations, everything helps. NTCA has really stepped up and offered to match up to $50,000. So if we can raise 50, they'll match us. That gets us almost there. So please, and it's more than money. It's also education, telling your neighbor, telling your friends, telling your family, introduce yourself, put flyers up in your business. Help us get the word out so that people know what we're doing and can help participate. because again, it's not us who are making these decisions, it's us as a big whole, it's a big group in the community. So it is a group effort. And, we've got some great videos we want to show you. We're going to continue with those. If you want to help out with doing the video, we've got some great community members, business owners that have helped up until now. Those of you with the big social media accounts, those skiers that live here, you can help out, help get the word out. It would be fantastic. It's not all money driven. We need to get the word out to our neighbors, to our friends, and our family, and our colleagues. So, we've got a short video we'll show you real quick, and then we're going to go back to Q&A.
I want to stress that we say it up there, but no donation's too small. We need tens, 25s, hundreds. Thousands are great. 10,000s are great. But the more people that support this effort at small amounts, the more it shows that our community wants us. So please encourage everyone you know to, if this is something they're interested in, to hop on GoFundMe and make any size donation.
Eastern Placer County is at a pivotal moment. Our region's unique. It's got distinct geography, diverse needs, and a close-knit community. At the same time, we also face growing challenges as decisions and resources continue to shift westward due to the growth in other parts of the county. This has sparked an important conversation. Could incorporation or forming our own town be the solution to ensuring that our priorities are addressed? This effort began with a fact-finding mission to explore whether a fiscally viable and sustainable local government could better serve our community. We'll share what we've learned so far and invite you to join in this conversation.
Incorporation offers.
Please hold.
The potential for more local control, allowing us to make decisions that directly reflect our community's values and needs. Right now, as an unincorporated area, many of the decisions that affect our daily lives are made a long way away from here. Towns by design focus on the communities they serve and tailoring services and resources to our local priorities. Incorporation could allow us to address issues like infrastructure, housing, transportation, in a way that aligns with our vision of the future. But this is a really big decision, and we want to know if you think incorporation is the right approach for the future of our community.
One of the key questions is whether incorporation would be financially viable, and the initial analysis provides some promising insights. A fiscal review found that a new town in Eastern Placer County could operate with a significant surplus in its general fund. This surplus could support unmet needs and build resilience for the future. Revenue from property taxes, sales taxes, and transient occupancy taxes would stay in our community, rather than being absorbed into the larger county budget. These findings are encouraging, but we know there's more to consider. What financial questions or concerns do you have about this possibility?
Another important question is how a town government might function. Incorporation would likely mean forming a local elected council to represent our interests and make decisions for our region. This could give us more control over services like road maintenance, parks, and local transportation. Other essential services like public utility districts, sheriff, public health, and fire protection would remain as existing. But creating a town also means defining priorities and deciding what matters most to our community. What do you think are the biggest opportunities and challenges in building a local government for Eastern Placer?
This is not just about the idea of forming a town. It's about deciding what's best for the future of Eastern Placer County. Incorporation is one path forward, but it's not the only option. We need your voice to help guide this conversation. What do you see as the biggest benefits or risks of incorporation? What services or changes do you think our community needs most? This is a collaborative effort, and your insights are essential. Together, we can evaluate whether this is the right step for our community and chart a course that reflects our shared values.
As we move forward in this exploration, we also need your support to make it happen. An effort like this requires resources, not just for studies and outreach, but to show that this community is ready to take charge of its future. Your contribution will make a big difference. It's not about the size of the donation, it's about the number of people who believe in this effort and are willing to invest in it. Every donor adds to the momentum and demonstrates that this community is serious about finding the best path forward. Please consider contributing today and being part of this important effort. Together, we can create a brighter future for Eastern Placer County. All right, now's the part in the show where you whip out your phones and you scan a QR code and make a donation, no matter how small. You can come back and make a bigger one later, but please do hop on this GoFundMe page, spread the word. We need resources to move this ball down the field.
Thank you, Kevin, and thanks to those of you in the room and elsewhere who were part of the video. Appreciate your comments. And I want to come back to answer one question that was pending. Yes, if you have a question?
Could you just put that QR code back up a little bit longer?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. And there are a couple of them on the wall too. So our good friend and neighbor, Mr. Hillfield, said that he's hearing some people say that the town of Truckee is a failure. That's not so. I was around, and many of us were, when Truckee incorporated. And I was a vote of the people, and they've had a successful number of years. And the voters in the town of Truckee have voted to raise taxes a couple times. And they did that for a specific purpose. The most recent one being Measure B last fall. So it's not done willy-nilly by the council or whomever. It's done by a specific set of reasons that are brought to the voters decide. And that's the way it would be here. If people decide they want a service or a facility or something like that that doesn't exist, it would go to the voters, and the voters would decide. And there are certain decisions that are made by the elected town council too. And so again, I was around when Truckee incorporated. It was really, it took them a couple times, but they got it right, and I think it's been very successful. And I can say that because I live in Truckee. 48 years at the lake for a variety of reasons, personal and other. I moved to Truckee, and I'm very familiar with the council. I know all of them. I see them every day, or often in town. And people who work for the town of Truckee, pretty solid staff. And it's a good experiment, and it's a successful experiment. Do they do everything right? No. Make mistakes along the way. But perfection is not the goal. It's local decision making. And if we make the wrong decision, that's on us. But town of Truckee is not a failure. There was one other question you had, Fred. Not sure you can hear what I say. But at any rate, we can do a couple things. We can do a couple more questions as a group, or maybe the more efficient way is that those of us who are volunteers on this committee can stay around for a while to answer questions one-on-one. We'd be happy to do that. Do we have a question in the back, Judy? Yes?
Hi, I'm Naomi Burton.
Hi.
I'm a Vista resident.
Yep.
Thank you for your tremendous work you put into this so far. I'm sure it's been quite a bit. I just had some questions regarding the financials, the expenditure side of things. Basically, if there's been performer projections
yes.
for capital expenditures, of equipment, of like the snow plow equipment and the necessary capital that would be necessary to take from Placer County or to
Purchase from them.
purchase from them.
Take it. If they want to give it, that's good. Sold.
If those numbers have been, put into into any projections.
I think fundamentally, Niobe, the answer is no, they haven't, because we don't know what they are. But the process does allow for us to get to that.
So I didn't know if that, information may be available from the Placer County as far as what they currently use.
We do have that information in our preliminary study. And I think for anybody that has a question about the financials, I think one-on-one conversations would be good. We can pull up some of the information that we have on our phone that isn't one of the PowerPoints that we have. Does that help? Okay.
It helps, yeah. I think that public-wide, it would be, if it's available to the public. It would help.
We do have a website.
It would be helpful for the discussions of who's gonna support, you know. The other question is, the big area, the way the boundary is put. And
Yes.
having the national forest in the middle. Are there other towns or incorporated areas that are similar to that, that we know that that area is not going to be required to be taken into account?
So, that's a LAFCO decision, but we do know of other communities. Truckee is one, and Truckee pays an annual fee to CAL FIRE to cover what is essentially a state responsibility area. Not necessarily within the town. The town does help to protect itself by having an agreement with CAL FIRE to respond. So the local fire district responds, all the cooperators in the region respond, and CAL FIRE, which they have a station actually at the airport, which is home to CAL FIRE, Truckee Fire, and it's a multi-agency center. So, and of course, the airport is a great asset for our community. It responds to many kinds of emergencies, and we're lucky to have that facility. And again, we're not talking about merging any special districts. So the airport, all the other special districts that we have stay the same. I think that makes sense. And I can tell you, the trucking experience when they first started, oh yeah, Hey, yes, sir.
Question. I want to appreciate the level of complexity and tactical work it takes to even begin the legislative action like this.
Yes.
It's massive. I think a risk that I see is that it takes so much energy to achieve that we don't actually engender the enthusiasm of the community. And so what's the best way for us to learn about the vision or contribute to the vision? And I say that because I've probably been to 200 ski towns in this world. Every single town knows Lake Tahoe and Squaw Valley and this area. I think we have an opportunity to present a vision to the world for how these towns evolve, because these towns are breaking all over the world. And so how do we contribute to understand that vision in a way that can motivate all the voters in this community?
That's a great segue to what I was going to say next. Thank you. So there will be a community survey. We don't say, okay, what do you think? And you go to the website and give your comments on it. This is an actual foundation to a potential campaign. So we actually are going to contract with a professional survey company to go out and do the kind of work necessary to get to your point. What is the vision? What are the things that we want to see? What do we not want to see? And that survey result will really help guide our efforts too. So all of your individual comments and whatever you do, talking to folks, there will be a formal survey as part of this. So I appreciate the question. I appreciate the fact that you've been to many ski towns in the world. So appreciate your experience. I hope this wasn't a ski accident. Guaranteed. Okay, that's a yes. Okay.
One final question. Bob Ayton again.
Yes.
I currently live in Tahoe City. If this goes through, will I still be living in Tahoe City? You won't change the name.
No. It's amazing how many people in South Lake Tahoe think Tahoe City is. And elsewhere, but it's not. But we're not proposing to change any of the names of any of the communities. There's a lot of history involved with each and every one of them. And the name of the town is, I think Kevin said, Town of North Lake Tahoe is a placeholder. People may decide something different. I don't know. But yes.
Hi.
Oh, yes.
Alpine Meadows resident for over 20 years. Also here reporting on the issue from Moonshine Inc. What do you see as the biggest hurdle to incorporating North Lake Tahoe?
Well, I think there's two. One is that we do need to raise a sufficient amount of money to get through the process. And the other is that, we need to make sure we're doing what the collective majority of the community wants to do. As it said, Alex said it in the video, Alex Morales said, is this the right step? Some of us think it is, but we don't really know. That's why we need your input. That's why we're going to conduct probably more than one survey. So I think those are the big things. Raising the money necessary and work with LAFCO and Placer County. And but if you remember back in the beginning of the big pink area, District 5 is 77% of the land area of Placer County. I don't know how many miles Cindy puts on her car representing a huge district like that. And the reason it's big is because, as was also said, each supervisorial district has to have roughly the same amount of population. And in order for us to get District 5 up to where the other districts are, we got to have a big area to incorporate a lot of areas that are relatively sparsely populated compared to the districts that are closer to Sacramento. So it's a huge area, and I know that sometimes our supervisor has said, why did I do this? It's a lot for any single human being to take on years ago. I don't know how many municipal advisory councils, how many different communities she's got to go to make sure that they feel represented. She does a great job. I can say that. I've known cities that she moved here. But how many people are really up for that sort of work? Wouldn't it be better to have a supervisor that represents the district, but also 5 members of the town council? So that's part of the decision-making set. I think what we can do, I know it's like 10 minutes to 5 on a Friday afternoon. Yes, we have a couple more questions, and then we'll break so that we can have individual discussions. Yes, and then Sydney.
My name's Karina. I've lived here since 1995, this time around. And I didn't look at the map closely enough. Where is the line that you guys have considered up by Donner Pass, Soda Springs, Sugar Bowl? Question.
Yeah, we don't go all the way up to the top of the summit. So basically, to quickly describe it, the boundary goes up against the boundary of the town of Truckee and Vatican. It does take a couple of the existing special districts that cross over. It does include them just because we're not going to do anything with those special districts. We don't want to put them in 2 different areas. So that's essentially it. And we do not go up to the summit. Now, LAFCO may say, no, that's where you're going. Okay, but we didn't put that in to begin with. We tried to keep it as contiguous as possible, notwithstanding the white area. And you know the reason we didn't include that. Yes, Supervisor Gus.
I should probably know this, but is there a limit on the number of council members, or could you propose 7 members, city council?
Might be a question for somebody that is a student of municipal law. I think basically, maybe you could do that, but typically towns of the size that we're talking about are typically 5. But there may be
The only reason I raised it is I do think we have very different communities up here, and that maybe we need to at least consider it if it is an option. I don't know, and I probably should know.
Well, thank you for the question, Supervisor Gus. We will find out. Maybe a good idea. All right.
Last question here, and then Steve, would you advance to the next slide?
Trust me to operate this thing. Daniel.
Thank you so much. I'm Erica Vedas from Union Bay. To follow up on the question around the survey, in addition to the survey, will there be any additional public forums to do community commissioning?
Yeah. This kind of meeting will continue to happen, as several of us have mentioned. The listening tour continues. This is it's not a big area population-wise, but we're pretty spread out. And so we want to get around to the different communities and have different meetings, because typically you get, different people, and they deserve an opportunity to hear the same presentation that y'all did today. And, it's our responsibility to get out there and do that. And if you have any suggestions, like community organizations that you think would like the presentation, please let us know. That goes for everybody in the room. If you have that, we'll be happy to go to Rotary or whatever it is. We're on the stump to not advocate for the town, but to educate people as to why they might want to vote in that direction if it comes to a vote, which we believe, Creek will rise. We'll get there.
Steve, if I may?
Yes.
To address your question directly too, there will be more public meetings like this and forums. There are also going to be committees forming starting probably next week on various topics. So we need your skills. We need anyone who has a little time to give, get involved, just have money, that's fine too. But please, the 9 of us who have gotten this ball rolling do not intend to do it ourselves, and we can't, we'll fail. We need everyone who's passionate and interested in this to get involved. Even if you're concerned, please get involved. Please go to easternplacercounty.org. We did build a website. It is small and simple. It's going to grow. easternplacerfuture.org. Sorry, Ed. We have an FAQ up there. We're going to be posting additional resources, summaries of the fiscal analysis, updates on timeline. You can sign up for email updates. There's a forum where you can submit questions that'll help to populate the FAQ. It's a work in progress, but please go to that site, and that's a way to get involved. And then lastly, we have some sign-up forms along that wall on your way out. Drop your name and email if you want to join the list, and you can indicate if you would like to get involved in any capacity. Or just grab one of us who's been involved, and we'll make sure to plug you in.
Thank you, Kevin. All right, well, you have a question that one of us can answer on the side?
Yes, just a real quick question. Dan Haas, we've got some pretty big development proposals in this region that were, they're coming up during the pipeline already. Does this process, is there a certain point in this process where those could be put on hold to see how this vote turns out? Like 39 degrees north, so it works, those kind of things.
It's all about timing. If the town farms before those go forward, it's possible that the town will take over determining what those are. So, but if they pass through the county before then, it's probably precluded from the town, and the town would subsequently take that over. And by the way, we're very aware that the town, part of which will be within the TRPA jurisdiction, part of it will be outside. And that's an interesting challenge. But typically municipal governments do have land use and zoning authority. It would have to be within the TRPA boundary, subject also to TRPA, and outside a little bit different. So, we're not just unique for where we are, but also for where we are. All right, thank you all for coming. I hope you have a great job. And have a good weekend.